Good morning, friends. Welcome back to Sunday School here at First United Methodist Church. We are so glad that all of you have joined us this morning. It's been a beautiful weekend. I hope you've gotten lots of opportunities to go play outside. God sure did make us a beautiful creation, and we sure are blessed to live here, where we get to explore the marsh and the beach, where we get to hear the seagulls and see the pelicans, and I hope that you have enjoyed time outside this weekend. Last week in Sunday School, we met a friend named Abram, and we're continuing his story this week. We're still reading from the book of Genesis. Remember, Genesis is a word that means beginning, and Genesis is the first book in the Bible, the beginning of God's story. Genesis is in the Old Testament. Remember, the Old Testament are those 39 books of the Bible that happen before the birth of Jesus. The last 27 books of the Bible are called the New Testament, and we'll start reading from the New Testament around December when we talk about Jesus's birthday. Our story for today is called Abraham and Sarah's Visitors. You can find it in your Spark Story Bible or by looking up Genesis chapter 17, verses 1 through 7, chapter 18, verses 1 through 15, and chapter 21, verses 1 through 7. Listen and follow along as I read God's story for this week. When Abram was 99 years old, he and his wife Sarai were still waiting for God's promise of a huge family to come true. Abram was getting frustrated. He asked God, "What are you waiting for?" God spoke to Abram, "I will keep my promise, and I will change your names. Instead of Abram, your name will be Abraham. Instead of Sarai, your wife will be Sarah." Abraham was afraid of what God said. He thought he was too old to become the father of so many people, and his wife was too old to have children. He fell on his face. Wait. Time out. He didn't just trip and fall. He fell on his face on purpose. The Old Testament in the Bible, when it talks about falling on your face, that was actually a sign of worship, to lay down in prayer and to be humble before God. All right, back to our story. He fell on his face and peeked up with one eye. Could God really make such a thing happen? Later, as Abraham was sitting by a tent, he saw 3 strangers walking towards him. Abraham squinted into the sun and wondered who would be visiting him on such a hot day. "Hi," Abraham said when they arrived. "You must be tired from traveling. Would you like to sit down and rest and have some food?" Quickly, Abraham asked Sarah to make some bread. He ordered his servant to prepare some meat. Sarah stood hiding in the tent, listening to the visitors. Who were they? And why had they come to her house? And why were they talking about her? She leaned in a little closer. "Your wife Sarah will have a son," the visitors said to Abraham. Sarah started to laugh. Didn't they know she was too old to have a child? The visitors looked up. "Why is Sarah laughing?" they asked. "Doesn't she believe God's promise will happen?" God's promise to Abraham did happen. Sarah had a baby boy and named him Isaac, which means laughter. Abraham and Sarah's family grew and grew and grew and grew and grew, and God blessed each generation with laughter and happiness. Guys, I love this story. In this story, God changes the names of Abram and Sarai to Abraham and Sarah. Why did he change their names? Well, because God made a covenant. It's a special kind of promise with Abraham and Sarah. And this promise, it changed their whole life. He promised that he would make them a father and a mother of many, 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 many nations, as many as there were stars in the sky. This promise changed their life. So God changed their name so that they would always remember God's promise. But they had to wait a really long time. I think that's the first lesson from the story for us this morning. Waiting is really, really hard. And it's really, really easy to get impatient when we wait. But sometimes when we wait for a really cool reward, something really awesome and really special, We have to learn how to wait patiently with a positive attitude. It would have been easy for Abraham and Sarah to get discouraged, but they kept their eyes on God. The second thing I think this story helps us remember is that when we make a promise, just like God made a promise to Abram, we should always keep our promises. And we should forgive others when they break the promises that they make to us, because sometimes that's what happens with people. But that's the last thing I want you to remember. God doesn't ever break his promises. God's promises, they last forever. And one of the most important things God has promised y'all is to always be with you. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, God will always be there. God doesn't break his promises. His promises last forever. Our memory verse for this week comes from Genesis chapter 18, verse 14. It asks a question. Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? Do y'all know the answer to the question? The answer is no. Nothing is too wonderful for God. Our God is big and mighty and powerful and awesome and amazing. And he's sitting right there with you wherever you are this morning. I hope you guys have a great week, and we look forward to reading more of God's story next week. Bye, friends.